Photography will change everything for art. Now, photography will develop, pun intended, in 1839. And artists will see photography as helpful. Of course, they can take a photo of a model and then paint the model in the studio, thus freeing up the model from having to stand around for hours and hours on end. Others, however, saw it as a threat to their livelihood. It also opened the collection of images to the masses, albeit slowly. Now, this is a big problem because up until this point, artists were the ones who really collected visual history. If you wanted to remember something, you had to hire an artist. If you were having a kegger in a basement, you had to have an artist come in and sketch you doing that keg stand. That being said, this is both going to be positive and negative, and it has a huge impact on art. Arguably, photography pushes art down the abstract path, but we'll get to that. It does, however, eliminate the need for illustration, a stalwart for up-and-coming artists. At the time, in the 19th century, as we see the rise of newspapers, they want images, illustrations, and that's where artists really start many of their careers. Now, they're not out sketching real-life things. They're taking the story and then sketching what they believe it would have looked like, usually with a certain element of extra drama and flair. This is where Winslow Homer starts. This is where many, many artists will start. And unfortunately, by developing photography, what happens is artists really lose their jobs to technology, no different than what we see today. So, for example, if I want a portrait of my Aunt Beatrice, I can go ahead and run down to Sears and get a portrait done for $29, whereas an artist today might want $500, $1,000, $2,000 to do the same thing. So it brings visual images to the masses that way. Also, we see people able to collect their own images, so I don't need to hire an artist to do that. And newspapers, well, it's a lot cheaper to hire a photographer and have them go out than it is to have someone sit around for a few hours doing a sketch. So at the end of the day, these artists are finding themselves out of work. This will also be in large part the death knell of abstraction, the death knell of realism in art, but we'll get to that. I want to start with Timothy O'Sullivan. Now, he recognized the paradigm shift in information management, which is really what we're dealing with. He believed that historical events could be permanently recorded on the spot. And this would be more honest and more accurate with the camera because, of course, an artist can take a license and alter things, but a camera really cannot. And a camera even today tends to be almost perfectly honest. It's when you get to Insta-Snap a Chatagram and all the filters that you run into problems. He will use photography during the Civil War to depict the dead, to depict life in the army camps, and to capture things that people had not seen in times of war prior. The piece we're looking at is A Harvest of Death. And here, O'Sullivan sought to impress on the viewer the high price paid for war. Corpses are shown to the horizon, and it's meant to suggest a huge number of dead. This is not a hopeful image like Homer, but rather something intentionally sobering, something that was supposed to elicit a response from the viewer. Looking at it reminds us of the incredible toll of war.